What up, what up, what up? Johnny from BRAAP. Another beautiful day here in sunny Florida, as always. Hey, gonna give you guys a quick rundown of our all-new 3-inch spacer lift, okay? Now, we came out with this because, honestly, we've had a gazillion phone calls from people who've gotten the other lifts and wanted to change out entirely to something different. But not everybody's ready to go to full Monty with a 3 or 6 inch STR suspension lift. So we thought we'd come out with a better alternative. Now, not only is this a better alternative, but it's also fully upgradable to our 3 and 6 inch STR suspension lifts. All right. So A, better components, B, fully upgradable. So you don't have to go throw everything away that's here. You're going to be able to use this with your 3 and 6 inch suspension kit, as really all of these components are already included with those kits. All right. So that being said, let me give you kind of a rundown of what this is all about. First, the basics. Our hardware, all 10.9 grade hardware, nice stuff. It's very strong. None of that grade 8 stuff or whatever it is. I'm not even sure. But this is all good quality hardware here. Now, you're gonna have in this lift, you're gonna have obviously your front wheels and your back wheels to lift, okay? So I'm gonna kind of go through the front first, then we'll hit the back. Now, on the front, first and foremost, I'll just show you these because, well, the other guys have these, the other guys use these. Very simple. These are coil spring spacers, buffers they call them. These things fit in between the springs on your suspension to give you a little bit more stiffness, but also they're gonna give you a little bit of height, okay? So part of your height in this lift, just like theirs, is gonna come from these coil spring spacers in the front. Now, you can also use these in the rear to give you a tiny bit more height, but also give you more stiffness in the rear if you're having issues with that. But these do come with this kit for the front. That's first thing. Now, the big thing and the most important thing to show you is, and really all the money right here, and all the reason to look at this lift for the most part, is our lift block system for the front, okay? Now, one thing you need to do with those other lifts, if you're gonna fit larger tires, anything over 27 inches, is you're gonna have to cut into your frame. And the reason is that's a straight drop. It's a straight drop in the front of your cross member and your control arms, but it doesn't give you any more room for wheels and tires, okay? Now what this does is we have a staggered tapered lift block design. This is one of many of our patent pending products, but this is a critical variable of all of our lifts right here, okay? Now, this here, basically you've got it staggered so that you're going out about 2 inches further forward with your wheels. So what that does is it allows you to fit up to 28-inch tires without any rub, okay? Huge deal there. In addition to that, we also taper our blocks. What that does is it realigns and adjusts your cross member and your control arms so that your suspension is all in more or less more of a straight line. Now, I won't get into too much detail on that. I've done other videos on that, but what that's gonna do ultimately is give you a little bit more comfortable ride, even with that stock suspension, all right? Real important part, these things just bolt from your cross member up into the frame of the car, just like those little blocks would on the other lifts. But these things are bulletproof, nice powder coated construction, beautiful, nice welds. We got a great welder, by the way. But yeah, there's your lift blocks. Now, the other way that we get lift in the front, and this is gonna sound crazy, the other guys won't tell you this because it's so simple, all right? All you're gonna do is you're gonna move your shocks up your knuckles a couple of inches, okay? Now, these shocks in the front of these cars, just like any other coilover setup, you know, that has eyes on top and bottom, are built with strength all the way through. So moving your shocks up the knuckles is really perfectly fine in this scenario. And in fact, we were doing this for years with our older lifts where we're using Bilsteins. All right, so time tested, it's proven, we've done it forever, and I've often recommended it, but the other guys won't tell you that because then you don't need the expensive spacers they sell you for the top of your shocks. So that being said, when you do move your shocks or your front coilovers up the knuckles a couple of inches, one thing you're gonna need is a little bit longer sway bar links. So what we have here, it comes with adjustable sway bar links that you're gonna install in place of your OEM ones, all right? So as far as that goes, those are super easy to install. The last thing you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to install a steering adapter. Now remember, your front cross member and your control arms have been re-angled a little bit, all right? Which means also your steering box has been re-angled a little bit. So this thing gets hooked up to your steering box, and then basically your shaft is going to attach to it. Now, one thing with this lift, because this is all re-angled, the shaft is going to need to sit in a slightly different position. So what you will need to do with this lift is you'll need to notch out a little bit around the firewall where the steering rack pokes through. Okay, super thin sheet metal, 10 snips will do it. You can get it from the inside of the car or from the outside of the car. The idea is just make it so when your steering shaft spins, it's not touching any metal, all right? It's not too complicated, but that's how you're gonna hook up the steering adapter. But that makes pretty much the front end suspension lift done on this, not suspension lift, spacer lift done for this kit. On the back, it's even easier, guys. So in the back, one of the things we wanted to do with this was make sure we really took into consideration factory geometry of suspension. Now, when you start putting spacers in to your suspension in the rear, you got a real short drive side axle on there, and it can create some problems. So we've seen it in the past. We've done things to address that in our STR suspension lift kits, but we also wanted to make sure we're considerate of that in a spacer lift. So what is the best way to do that? Avoid changing the suspension in the rear at all. Okay, now again, you can put some coil spring spacers in there to tighten things up a little bit. You can also, if you can find them, run some EV springs, meaning the springs that come out of an EV Smart. But what we do is the same thing that we do in our 6-inch STR suspension lift, is we do what we call a body cradle drop. Okay, now what that basically means is your engine sits on a cradle up underneath the car. Okay, that cradle is hooked in by 4 bolts that go into the frame of your car. Basically, everything sits on that. Your engine sits on that, your wheels are connected to that, everything's connected to that cradle. So what we do is we put some spacers in between the cradle and the body. Okay, these are, what do they call these? UHMWPE. It's ultra high molecular weight polyethylene. Super high density stuff. This stuff is really strong. It's got a crush strength of up to 5,800 pounds. Now, considering your car only weighs like 1,800 pounds, these things are going to be quite strong enough, okay? So you're going to have these for the front and the back. They're just going to bolt up into there, and that's going to change the space in between the cradle and the body of your car. So that's where all your lift comes from, really, in the back, is from that body cradle drop, okay? So you're not changing any factory geometry on your suspension. So it's really a better solution. And as an added bonus, it's going to move your engine away from the top of that engine opening in the back of your car, giving you a little bit more room to work on it. So, and that's a super nice feature to have. You got to change plugs? Well, guess what? You got a few inches extra to do that with this body cradle drop. Now, one thing I want to note, full disclosure, that happens when we do a body cradle drop in these cars is that the e-brake tends to disconnect from itself inside, right in front of the engine, in the engine compartment. So what we do is we give you a real simple kit or a couple of parts to correct that, to fix it. I will say, when we do these lifts, even a 6-inch lift, we tend not to hook the e-brake back up, but if you want to, the parts to correct that are included here. It's not super simple, but basically you remove one of the seats, pull the whole e-brake unit out, there's a rod, cut that rod in half, thread each half of that cut rod with this die right here, and use this coupling link in between, and then basically hook your e-brake back up, and you're good to go with an e-brake, okay? But that is the one thing that happens with this when you do a body cradle drop, is you tend to disconnect the e-brake. So the tools are here to do that, all right? So other than that, I want to mention one more time that this kit here is, for the most part, fully upgradable to our 3 and 6-inch STR suspension lifts. Now, I mentioned before that the 6-inch uses the body cradle drop in the back. The 3-inch does not, but the 6-inch does. The 6-inch uses a larger block in the front. These are the exact blocks that we use in the 3-inch suspension lift, all right? But you guys got any questions on that? The bottom line is that you don't have to throw everything out should you and when you want to upgrade to a true BRAAP STR suspension lift, okay? most of the components here are going to transfer right over to that. So that being said, we love you guys. Thanks for your support. You got any questions on any of this, hit us up. Really simple. You'll get detailed instructions with this. We will be putting together a video. For now, it's written instructions, but I think it's really a pretty simple installation. All right.